請各位
Members will please remain standing for the Acting Chief Executive. Acting Chief Executive. The Acting Chief Executive will first address the Council. Acting CEO. Madam President, members, today this is the first meeting with the Legislative Council in my capacity as Acting Chief Executive. To me, this is a new experience. I hope that today's meeting will mark a new beginning in the relationship between the government and the legislature. I have two expectations. First, I expect strong communication and mutual trust between the executive and the legislature. Second, I appreciate public expectations on better governance and better executive and legislature relationship. I and SAR government, like the members of the public, also expect full cooperation with the legislature and together work for the well-being of the people of Hong Kong. Over the past years, the SAR government and community have been exploring ways in which to establish policy framework conducive to Hong Kong's stability and development. We have achieved quite a bit in this area. With persistent economic recovery, with a harmonious and stable society, with political wrangling receding, the people of Hong Kong are more optimistic about the personal prospect and Hong Kong's prospect. This joyous situation doesn't come easy. This is all the more reason why we have to treasure it. Madam President, what sort of challenges and opportunities will Hong Kong be faced with? First, Hong Kong's development has to be conducive to the overall situation of the nation. Second, Hong Kong's restructuring and development must be responsive to the challenges arising from economic globalization. We play a pivotal role in the PRD and pan-PRD region economy. We have to strengthen our international financial center and cosmopolitan status in the region. Our hardware and software leave much room for improvement. It doesn't admit of a modicum of complacency or slackening. Furthermore, the people of Hong Kong's general aspiration is for better quality of life. They aspire for an open, democratic, just and caring society. 6 million people of Hong Kong would like to see progress. They would like to see better livelihood. This is legitimate expectation. The government must be self-motivated enough to engage in soul-searching, to strive for improvement, and respond effectively to people's aspiration. Madam President, we will resolutely implement the established policy. Our governance will be characterized by modesty, caution, rational pragmatism, and decisive efficiency. We will enhance our capabilities in policy research, formulation, coordination, and implementation. We will rise to the significant challenges of Hong Kong with the public in the spirit of accommodation and inclusiveness. We'll let more people take part in public affairs. With an attitude of openness and sincerity, we'll try to secure trust and support for the government. We must be agreed that the immediate task is for us to elect the new chief executive on the 10th of July on time and legally. Madam President, there are a lot of challenges ahead of us. And there are many rare opportunities. I'm sure that with the support of the CPG, with the cooperation of the Legislative Council, and with the concerted efforts of the people of Hong Kong, Hong Kong will be a decent place in which to live and work, a place that will do us proud. Thank you, Madam President. I'll be delighted to take questions. The acting CE will now answer questions raised by members. As you all know, a member whose question has been answered may, if necessary, and for the purpose of elucidation only, ask a short follow-up question. But it must be related to what the Chief Executive said. Mr. Philip Wong, Mr. CE, Mr. Deng Xiaoping said that there is a limit, there is a standard regarding Hong Kong people ruling Hong Kong. It must be for the patriotic people to rule Hong Kong. I'm sure the majority of the civil servants in Hong Kong are patriotic. Some people in Hong Kong hold different views. How would you guide these people in such a way that the civil servants, majority of them, are patriotic? They like Hong Kong in order to assuage these people's concern. See, Mr. Deng Xiaoping's patriotism has a broad definition. He mentioned three criteria. First of all, one has to uphold the country, one has to uphold his own nation, and also one has to support the basic law and one country, two systems. And this is the definition for patriotism. With this definition, I'm sure that the majority of the civil servants are patriotic. Civil servants abide by the basic law in implementing government policies and in serving the members of the public. This will be conducive to the country. This will be conducive to Hong Kong. And this is the most specific way of expressing one's patriotic sentiment. I'm sure that the civil are patriotic and they like Hong Kong. And with action, they will demonstrate their contribution to Hong Kong as well as to the nation. Some people do have doubts about the patriotism of the civil servants. I'm sure that it would take communication. I'm sure that myself and my colleagues would work towards this direction. Mr. Tim Pui Chung, Acting CE. My question is in relation to Article 55 of the Basic Law. The members of the Executive Council shall not exceed the term of the Chief Executive who appoints them. Chief Executive, on two occasions you said here that since Mr. Tong's resignation on the 12th of March, you asked the whole EXCO to stay on. From the Basic Law, we know that basically the Basic Law is very, very clear, and you were the Chief Executive. But I can't see how you could reappoint them. The Basic Law doesn't say that. And these EXCO members are still EXCO members within Mr. Tong's term until the election on the 10th of July. So, Mr. Acting Chief Executive, do you think that there are some flaws in the Basic Law? Are you going to seek an interpretation of the Basic Law by the NPCSC and also the State Council? Acting CE. Article 55 of the Basic Law, I'm sure, is sufficiently clear. First of all, Mr. Tong's term started on the 1st of January 2005 until, or 1st of July 2002 until the 12th of March 2005. So the executive members appointed by him within his term under Article 55 of the Basic Law will come to an end on the 12th of March. But as I said, to maintain Hong Kong's stability, we have to make sure that our operation will not go astray. As acting chief executive, I exercised my authority in the same way as the chief executive. Under the basic law, I reappointed all the executive councillors and all the documentation was in order. Of course, I didn't have the need to reappoint all the ExCo members, but as I said, in order to maintain constitutional stability, in order to assuage members of the public's concerns about the efficiency of our governance being undermined, arising from Mr. Tong's departure, I reappointed all of them until the end of the term. Mr. Jim, Acting CE, can you tell us under what article of the Basic Law does it say that as acting chief executive you had the obligation to reappoint executive councillors? Well, there's no duty or obligation or no need for him to do so, but there was the decision to do so. Mr. Lau Kong-wah, Madam President, Mr. Tsang brought out a message that he would like less wrangling in the community. There would be more cooperation for the well-being of the public. Over the years, the public would like to see a reduction in the transport fees or fare. But in a couple of days' time, the Eastern Harbour Crossing is going to be putting up the toll drastically, and this is going to be putting burden on the public. And that would also trigger a wave of fare rise. The government seems to be powerless in this regard. And on the day the toll goes up, it is likely that traffic snarl-up is going to take place. The government is pinning hope on heaven and hoping against hope that there would be no problem. Do you think that the government has slipped up in the whole process, and what sort of lessons do you think the government can draw from the whole exercise? If massive traffic congestion grinding Hong Kong to a halt, what measures do you have up your sleeve to deal with the problem?
The acting chief executive. First of all, the EHC, in accordance with the results of the arbitration, decided to increase the toll. This wasn't something that we had anticipated in the past, and that's why we understand the reaction of the public in relation to the result of the arbitration, and that the EHC can increase the toll. In fact, the government is disappointed, and this point has been repeated by Dr. Liao, the secretary, a number of times. We are concerned about the upcoming increase in toll, but at the same time, we have to respect the result of the arbitration. We have to respect the rule of law, and it overrides many other critical considerations. All along, we have been considering possible options so that harbor crossing traffic can be evenly distributed. Last week, my colleague has already come back with a response stating 12 options. On the one hand, we are listening to the views of the public. On the other hand, we are actively liaising with the franchisee operator of the HC so that we can come up with something which meets public interest and respect the operation of the market, and something for the longer term. And on the 1st of May, if the new tolls come into effect, there may be a impact on the distribution of traffic. The administration will trigger off all possible mechanisms and systems to deal with the problem instantly. Maybe we will take a bit of time to adjust to the new scenario. And of course, we have been discussing this matter for a period of time, and we're grateful to the legislature for your concern. 1st of May is a public holiday, and 2nd of May as well. And we hope that the aggregate traffic flow on those 2 days won't be that great, so that the negative impact will be captured to the minimum. It depends on our joint efforts, and as to the actual redeployment and arrangements, the Transport Department, the police, as well as the Bureau and the Policy Secretary will show personal concern and interest. Mr. Lau Kong-wah, Mr. Donald Zhang referred to 12 options. I just wonder if Mr. Zhang would concentrate on one or two options so as to exchange for a delay in the toll increase on the part of the operator, where in fact the options are known to you and understand that the operator is not going to change its original decision. It is going to follow the result of the arbitration. I think it is their right, but at the same time, we'll still try our best. We'll try hard. I won't be too optimistic here that the operator will change its original decision. Mr. Andrew Zhang, I want to take up the issue of exceedingly long working hours of our Hong Kong population. I'm sure Mr. Zhang would know that according to information, people of Hong Kong are very hardworking. Over 2 million working people on a weekly basis have to work over 60 to 70 hours a week. And such kind of working hours have a very bad impact on our health, emotionally and physically. And Mr. Tong has been working from 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. Now, Mr. Zhang, you have given us the impression that you take it lightly, and I want to know whether in your term you would introduce maximum working hours so that we have a healthy lifestyle, we have quality lifestyle, and then we can also whistle like you when we have time, and then we can also keep some goldfish and also go to see a play concerning a Cantonese opera singer. I think diligence is one of our virtues. I don't think this convention will be changed easily. Sometimes it isn't that the boss will impose the working hours on me, and so I work those hours. Sometimes it is our own willingness on our part. Now, if working hours aren't too excessive, that may not have a negative impact on our health. If we introduce something which is statutory, if we introduce something which is mandatory in relation to maximum working hours, I think members of the legislature have come back with very strong views. This is also so on the part of the employers. For such controversies, I think we need a tripartite consensus. We have to take into account employees' requests, employers' concern and agreement, as well as the government's legislative work. We have already got the channels and medium for discussion of such matters. We have the relevant advisory bodies and committees. I'm sure they will agree on the best way forward. Once there is a consensus between the employers and employees, it will be easier for the government. But then whenever you try to do so by legislative means, you have to pay a price. In other words, in the labor market, there will be a reduction in flexibility. Maybe the society wants us to pay this price. The most important point is to gain the consensus first. Mr. Zhang. Madam President, if I may just share my observation with Mr. Zhang. Well, throughout the world, 148 countries, including our motherland, as well as our competitors in Southeast Asia, have already passed legislation in relation to the maximum working hours. In fact, it is known to everybody that excessively long working hours would affect the workers' health, and that would also affect our quality of life. I don't think Hong Kong workers should be regarded as second-class citizens. So if I may just ask Mr. Zhang once again, I'm now drafting a private member's bill in relation to maximum working hours. Would you give us a written consent in accordance with Article 74 of the Basic Law so that at least I have the chance to introduce the bill and have it debated here? This is part of the PIC policy, and you need the CE's consent before you can introduce a private member's bill. And before that, we need the consensus in the society. I don't think the CE can simply say yes or no just because a private member's bill has been introduced by a member of the legislature. I can appreciate your point, and you have behind you the aspirations of the workers. But then we are all rational, and I'm sure on at appropriate junctures, on appropriate occasions, we can have a discussion and come to consensus before we move on to legislation. Mr. Wong Yong Ken. Thank you, Madam President. If I may ask Mr. Zhang this question. the NPC is very concerned about the three problems of our farmers in the country. And then, according to Article 119, I think we are supposed to develop our fisheries and agriculture industry. Now that we have encountered a problem in our fisheries industry, as the CE, what solutions have you got? Fishermen have to face the problem of high fuel prices. Farmers have their licenses being revoked or forced to surrender them. So what is the solution? Acting CE. Our society is developing high value-added industries. For the agriculture and fisheries industry, I think indeed there is a pressure on them. All industries have to move with the times in relation to the methods of operation and production, like in planting and fishing, etc. For us, we have the AFCD, looking after such industries. So if Mr. Wong believes that there's something that our department can do, and if there's something that we can move ahead with the times, while at the same time keeping such traditional industries so that they can still continue to expand the business, I'm sure we are happy to consider your proposals. It isn't just a matter with other industries. All industries, including agriculture and fisheries, we have to upgrade ourselves and add value to ourselves and move ahead with times. You are the expert. We are not experts. If you have a proposal, a suggestion, we'll be more than happy to consider them. Mr. Wong Yong-Ken, thank you. Thank you very much. The acting CE as to who is the expert. I think within the government there are many experts. I'm not an expert. I hope you would give instructions to your subordinates to make sure that they expedite their pace. So I think you need to ask a question, right? So acting CE, the question is it possible? Yes, whether you can expedite the pace. Once we receive a suggestion from you, I will make it a point to ask our officials to expedite the pace. Mr. Albert Ho, thank you, Madam President. Yesterday, the Standing Committee of the NPC, on the third occasion since the handover, interpreted the Basic Law. So on this occasion, I would like to seek the views of the CE. Well, after the interpretation of the Basic Law yesterday, some friends met me and they said that they felt that it seems that it would be pointless to be educated in law, and it would even be meaningless to be a literate, because even though something is in writing, it doesn't mean much, and even though something is already reduced into writing, extra things can be added to it. So the Basic Law itself isn't meaningful, because by means of Basic Law interpretation, a lot can be added to the Basic Law text. Now, it is said that the current interpretation would only apply to the 07 CE election. For anything post-07, amendment of the method contained in the annex to the Basic Law can amend the arrangement of serving out the remainder of the term arising from this interpretation. Well, I think the annex is rather like a piece of subsidiary legislation. It surprises me to find that amendment of the annex can lead to an amendment of the text itself. Now, we hope that the NPCSC can exercise restraint. I have one request to make here. I hope the SARG can exercise self-constraint. Please do not request for further interpretation of the Basic Law. Use other means to deal with the differences in the interpretation of the Basic Law. Acting CE. I am confident that officials are aware of the sensitivity of the issue concerning interpretation of the Basic Law. Unless it is necessary, and in fact, in relation to Article 158, the use of it has not gained common acceptance. So I understand that we won't resort to it lightly. On this occasion, we have requested for a Basic Law interpretation in relation to Article 53. I'm sure you know the grounds very well. I don't want to repeat the justification here. The main point is that on the 10th of July, we want to hold the CE election. As a responsible government, I don't think we would say that we would never seek interpretation again. But as you have said, we will act cautiously. We will use a very transparent manner to do this, and it will only be done when it is necessary. Mr. Ho, Mr. Zhang, as you know that many people have challenged the point as to whether the SARG has the right to approach the State Council and ask the NPCSC to interpret the basic law. If we don't interpret the basic law, we will really need to something very serious. Can you give a promise that only when there is a very good reason, say for example emergency, necessity, etc., can you promise to provide statutory backing to such a promise so that you use legislative restriction to make sure that we don't resort to interpretation lightly? Well, the use of the Constitution, well, we've only have a short history of 7 or 8 years only. I'm sure the government will be fully exercising self-restraint. It will be very transparent, and we have the duty to explain fully the justification to the public. We have done this, and in the future will continue to do this. Previous experience, if used to form the basis of a very rigid requirement, may not be appropriate. I don't think anybody would want to have any arbitrary use of interpretation. This is true for the SARG, the Central People's Government, as well as the NPCSC. If it is not necessary, we don't want to do it. But if it is necessary to resort to this, then we have to do it. But before we have any experience, before we have adequate experience, I don't think we should reduce them into rules and regulations to restrict the arrangements. I hope Mr. Ho can appreciate this point. If I may just boldly make a commitment, and it is one done with sincerity. In relation to the request for interpretation, the government has been cautious, responsible, and trying to be as transparent as possible. And it is only when necessary and when it is only of an emergency nature.
Mr. Hao Yang, Madam President, if I may put this to the Acting Chief Executive for the West Kowloon Cultural Development Plan, we're still awaiting the new Chief Executive to make a decision. The former Chief Executive, Mr. Tung Chee-hwa, gave the undertaking that he would abide by public opinions. Given the public sentiments, many people would like to see the emergence of such a project. But there is very much a mainstream opinion against single tender approach. Will the government give up the single tendering approach for the West Kowloon Cultural Development Project in the light of public opinions? Acting CE, for the WKCD project, it will not be changed as a result of Mr. Tong's resignation. This is still going ahead. We have extended the consultation period because some members of the public would like to have a look at the models and the details of various proposals, and they would like to be able to express their opinions. We have moved the exhibition from Hong Kong Kowloon to the new territories, and we have about well over 1,000 people going to see the exhibition on a daily basis. After the consultation period, I will be taking the decision and introduce the project to the people of Hong Kong. Mr. Tong gave the undertaking that the project would be reflecting public opinions. Given it has to be, where is justice? Order, please. After the consultation period, we'll come up with a model which would take into account the views of the public. We appreciate the views of the public about the single tender approach. Mr. Howard Young, Madam President, this project was the Chief Secretary's project. So is it likely that an acting CE would be adopting a broader perspective in looking at the issue? Or will there, this is not part of the original question, but it's up to the acting CE. It is very unlikely. Ms. Choi So-yuk. Madam President, Lien Chan said in Nanjing that to create a mutually beneficial future across the strait, they would like to contribute to such a prospect, and both sides of the strait would like to create a nation which we are proud of. Will the Chief Executive tell us how he can do things which will enable us to be proud of the nation, and what has he done to contribute to the peaceful reunification between the two places across the strait? The SAR government has not been set up for a long time. We appreciate the difficulties in Taiwan, and we appreciate that this is not an easy issue for the nation. Hong Kong has been playing an intermediary role. In terms of trade, in terms of culture, Hong Kong is playing a bridging role. Taiwan can take Hong Kong as a platform to develop in the mainland of China. And Mr. Lien Chan flew to Hong Kong on his visit to the mainland. He used the airport in Hong Kong. Hong Kong has played a role, although a small role, but Hong Kong definitely is playing a role. There are things that do us proud. Hong Kong is an international financial center in the region. We play a role that other markets cannot compare favorably, and we are developing our role in the light of the development of the nation. We also have increased the livelihood of the general public. Ms. Choi So-yuk, Madam President, if I may put this to the acting chief executive. He referred to the areas where Hong Kong can enable the nation to excel. Are there areas that he thinks should be developed sustainably? Under the Basic Law, Hong Kong will continue to be the financial center. We are also a shipping center. These are the areas that we will work hard to enable the nation to excel. There would be huge potential there. I'm sure that we are moving, many people are moving in this direction. In the future, Hong Kong will continue to provide a lot of financing, transportation and shipping support, and there would be a lot of development potential. Our nation is an important economy the world over. Hong Kong has contributed in the past. We will continue to make contribution in the future. Mr. James Tin, Acting CE. In your opening statement, you said that your first expectation is to improve the relationship between the executive and the legislature. This is a bit of tall order. Mr. Tong has been there for 7-8 years and still hasn't quite achieved that. Since March 12, I don't think you've done a lot to improve the relationship between the executive and the legislature. In answer to Mr. Young's question about the WKCD, you said that you would listen to the public opinion, but you never mentioned listening to the opinions of the Legislative Council. Don't say that these hypotheticals. I'm sure that you would find it difficult to improve the relationship between the executive and the legislature. After the 10th of July, what measures do you think you have to improve the relationship between the executive and the legislature? Can you cite us a couple of measures, please? Well, Mr. Tin, your question can be modified to say that are there ways to improve the relationship between the executive and the legislature? Acting CE. I try to seek opportunities to meet legislators. Every time you have meeting, I try to be here. I try to be here on Wednesday when you have council meetings where there are opportunities to explain public opinion policies. I would try to do so. I also meet legislators in private, on the phone, face to face. I will continue to do so. It is a long-term undertaking to improve the relationship between the executive and the legislature. Under the constitutional setup, of course, there are human factors. On a daily basis, on a monthly basis, I will try to do this. I'm sure that the relationship is crucial in our governance. And this is a two-way approach. I'm sure myself and my colleagues would work the hardest in this regard. In the days to come, we'll try to think how we can achieve this in the best way possible. I also look forward to suggestions from the members here in order to improve the communication. I said I'll listen to public opinions, and public opinions are reflected to us through the legislators. I'm sure you have more contact with the public, a broader contact with the public. This is from the bottom of my heart. I do hope that in the days to come, we will put on our thinking cap, and I hope that Mr. Tin and political parties will also put on their thinking caps. We'll listen to what you have to say. If you want to get the political environment right, get the economy right for the well-being of Hong Kong people, wrangling would get us nowhere. We have to have mutual accommodation before we can achieve good result. I will work hard on that score. Mr. James Tin. Madam President, in the course of improving the relationship between the executive and the legislature, many members would like to see you here more often, and instead of coming here for 1 hour and 15 minutes, would you come more often and longer, let's say 1.5 hours. If members can bear with me, I'm prepared to stay here for 1.5 hours. I am acting chief executive. If members would like to meet the chief executive more than 4 times a year and more than one hour each time, I'm delighted to pass on your message to the new chief executive elected on the 10th of July. For this legislative year, all the members have already put questions, and now those who put question once will get a chance to ask questions. Mr. Ronnie Tong, if I may put this to Mr. Tsang, on the 12th of March, the former chief executive, Mr. Tong, tendered his resignation. You announced immediately that you accepted the opinions of Beijing scholars regarding the term of office, and you also immediately changed the government's position and said that the term for the new chief executive would be 2 years. When did you take such a quick decision, and who took this decision? If it was a decision taken by Mr. Tong as Chief Secretary for Administration, did you try to uphold the rule of law and one country, two systems, and asked Mr. Tong to first consult the Legislative Council, the legal fraternity, and the members of the public before taking the decision? Acting CE, on the 12th of March, when I met councillors together with Ms. Elsie Leung, I did explain the background to the whole thing. When the CE's office falls vacant, the 3 weeks before the 12th of March, there were lots of opinions in the community regarding the term of office. It was against this background that Mr. Tong asked Ms. Elsie Leung to come up with a good decision. Ms. Leung has been flying back and forth many times in order to understand the legislative intent and all the rest of the information. She came back to Hong Kong with the information, and she looked at the whole issue against the common law convention, and the decision was that the term of office of the new chief executive would be the remainder of the term of his predecessor. At the beginning of March, we did have internal discussion. When we became aware of Mr. Tong's resignation, when the news was announced about Mr. Tong's resignation, we discussed this issue more intensely internally. We must give the message to the public that should Mr. Tong's resignation be accepted, we must let the public know when the new chief executive is going to be elected and how long the term is going to be lasting for. We cannot do it willy-nilly. It has to be made abundantly clear. My colleagues and I read Ms. Leung's opinions, and after consideration, we accepted the opinion. On the 12th of March, the resignation of Mr. Tong was accepted by the central government, and in my capacity as acting CE, I announced the opinions and made a statement. Mr. Ronnie Tong.
So I don't quite understand. Was it a Beijing decision, or was it your decision? If it was your decision, why didn't you ask for the LegCo, the public, as well as the legal fraternity be consulted? I have already made it clear at that time, in the capacity as the acting CE, I accepted the opinion. As I have said, it is not that at the time the society didn't have a discussion. There was already full discussion. The question of 2 years or 5 years was already fully discussed in the media. So at that time, we judged what was needed in the society. Mr. Tong, the need was that on that very same day, the society would like to know whether there would be concrete and proper arrangements in relation to the election of a new CE when the office of the CE became vacant. It was not possible to have further discussion, further consultation, and so delaying and prolonging the uncertainty, and that's the background of the decision. Mr. Albert Zhang. Thank you, Madam President. If I may ask Mr. Zhang this question. Just now when you answered members' questions, you said that you were glad to see that Hong Kong could become the bridge between the two sides across the street. Now, the unofficial representative of Taiwan in Hong Kong, Mr. Pao Ching-kong, he would like to go to the airport to meet the delegation led by Mr. Lian Zhan. But then he was stopped by the airport authority, and then the SCA, Mr. Stephen Lam, when answering questions from members of this council, said that Mr. Pao came uninvited. Now, Mr. Pao has come back with a formal response, and I heard it on the radio program. He said that he had formal application to get permission to meet the Taiwanese delegation. He said that Mr. Lam's accusation was unfair and incorrect. Now, my question is, will this hurt the feelings of the Taiwan people? So, who is telling lies? Did he come uninvited, or is it the case that Hong Kong officials dismantle the bridge so that we are no longer needed as the bridge for the purpose of communication by refusing Mr. Pao the opportunity to meet Mr. Lian Zhan? Was it your decision, or was it Mr. Stephen Lam's decision? Acting CEO. I used to have a lot to do with someone surnamed Bao. My wife is surnamed Bao. I don't know whether Mr. Bao Cheng-kong is also from Zhongshan. This matter isn't as simple as it appears. For Chunghwa Travel Service Agency, its status in Hong Kong and it's also its scope of activities, the SARG as well as the CPG have a very clear position. It is clear and also consistent all along. The person in charge of the Chunghwa Travel Services Agency is fully aware of the SARG's position. Their day-to-day work will include the following: assisting Hong Kong people in relation to the application for visas to visit Taiwan. That's their main area of work. For the SARG, at the airport and at other control points, when meeting, VIPs have a very strict set of control arrangements. Only when we are talking about consulate staff or national leaders will be included. Say, for example, the U.S. President or the State Secretary. And then, other than SARG officials going there to meet them, there would also be officials from the U.S. consulate. And then, say, for example, if the leaders of the Central People's Government come to Hong Kong, then the mainland officials would also be here to meet them. So we do have rules governing such. For Chunghwa Travel Services Agency, it doesn't have an official capacity. It isn't part of the administration, and it isn't part of the consulates. So it is not correct to expect that they can go to the VIP lounge and go to meet VIPs at the airport. And that's why we have rejected Mr. Bao's application, to avoid people having the impression that Chunghwa Travel Services Agency have the same status like a consulate or a national agency in Hong Kong. On this occasion, Mr. Lian Zhan visits the mainland, and very soon Mr. James Sung will also be transiting in Hong Kong to go to the mainland. I hope you can appreciate our positions concerning Taiwan affairs. Mr. Stephen Lam has told you the truth, and I also hope that Mr. Bao has heard what I have said, and I hope he can appreciate that he has given us some undertaking in relation to his work in Hong Kong, and hope he can honor that. Mr. Zhang. The other day, Mr. Stephen Lam gave us a reply. Had he given us this information as you have outlined, I would not have asked this question. Mr. Lam told us that Mr. Bao applied for a pass to tour around the airport on that day. And of course, that wouldn't include the VIP's lounge. So that's the background of our questions. And also, Lian Zhan didn't represent represent Taiwan officially. So please tell us about how Mr. Lam has been handling the matter. Well, maybe you didn't ask the question in this way, and so Mr. Stephen Lam didn't have the chance to give the answer in this manner. So I've made it very clear just now, and we have been adopting high protocols to receive Mr. Lian Zhan because he is the chairman of the Kuomintang. Ms. Tam Hengman. Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Zhang talked about different ways to have mutual communication, and he would listen to the views of the electrical. In relation to West Kowloon Cultural District, recently we had a motion debate. Having listened to many members' views, Mr. Zhang simply said that he just couldn't accede to our request. I don't know whether it comes from the bottom of his heart in relation to our request to scrap the single tendering approach. So, Mr. Zhang, how can you assure us that in the future you will try your best to listen to us so that there can be communication and so that we can also improve the relationship between the executive and the legislature? The acting CE. Well, every word that I utter comes from the bottom of my heart. I want to have more sincere communication. I wish we all listen more to the public. But then sometimes there is a difference between the public's view as well as the electoral's view. Say, for example, the question of the West Kowloon Cultural District's single tendering approach. On the other day, what you were asking for, if you remember, was almost something like scrapping it instantly, and that we have to do it from scratch in relation to the development of the West Kowloon Cultural District. This view is very different from the overall public position. So that's why I said that I wouldn't be able to accede to your request. We know that we have to make choices and we have to gain your understanding. Mr. Wong Kwok Hing. Thank you, Madam President. I try to ask a question on behalf of the poor. In the policy address, please take a look of paragraph 44. Mention is made about the Commission on Poverty. It is said that we would adopt a broad view and look at education, training, etc. in relation to eradication of poverty, and there would be concrete measures to address the plight of the needy, the single parents, the elderly, the disabled, and you will also want to help those who are in low-income employment. So in this paragraph, it is talking about Commission to alleviate poverty. But then you would only be deciding on indicators for 4 groups: youth and children, working adults, elderly, and then the community. I think you have left out single parents as well as the disabled in relation to their poverty. Now, the Commission has left out these 2 groups, but then these 2 groups are exactly being mentioned in the policy address. So I want to know if the acting CE would remind the Commission to remedy the situation as soon as possible by including those 2 groups as well. Well, I think in the policy address, Mr. Tong gave a lot of details, and in relation to the Commission on Poverty, of course, they are more concise and brief in their documents. For our policies, I'm sure we can always revise and review them to see whether there can be any improvement. Of course, I will be happy to refer your point to the FS to see whether they can re-examine this paragraph in the policy address concerning the scope of alleviation of poverty and check if the Commission can include those 2 groups. And then a word on the single parents and the disabled. All along, they have always been our main targets of assistance. I don't think we're going to overlook their needs. Mr. Wong Kwok Hing? Madam President, if I may ask the acting CE, when would you be able to include those 2 groups In a moment, I'm going to take up the matter with the FS, but then it's up to him to decide when to include them. There are many members on the commission, and there are many representatives, so maybe we have to prioritize our task. I have full confidence in the FS in discharging this duty. Mr. K.K. Kwok. Thank you, Madam President. First of all, I would like to congratulate the CE, the acting CE. His request for the BL interpretation has been fully endorsed by the Standing Committee of the NPC. Of course, we know that the acting CE has also got another capacity, has another hat to wear. That is the person in charge of the task force on constitutional development. Last year, as a result of the constitutional development work, we had the second interpretation of the basic law by the Standing Committee of the NPC. So acting CE, I can still recall what you have said. You said that in your body you have the blood of Hong Kong and you drink the water of Hong Kong, and therefore you hope that the constitutional development of Hong Kong can be taken forward. So my question is, in your current work, and also it is very likely that being the favored candidate, you will become our new CE. I almost have a slip of tongue. I'm sorry about that. I want to know how you can discharge your duty under Articles 45 and 68 of the Basic Law, that is to achieve universal suffrage at the end of the day. So what is your blueprint? Last year, the universal suffrage for 07 and 08 elections have been ruled out. So what is our blueprint so that we can make our next step forward? Acting CE, concerning the power of the NPCSC to interpret the Basic Law, it is being clearly spelled out in Article 158 of the Basic Law. I think this is part of the constitutional design of Hong Kong. I hope you won't regard them as something which is draconian, something which is to be feared for. Yes, I understand that the people of Hong Kong are sensitive about this. It is something unfamiliar, and this is because in the past we used to have common law. But please also understand that this design of the Basic Law is part of our constitutional framework, and I don't think we can disrespect it and regard it as something that we have to fear for. Last year, in spring, the Standing Committee of the NPC, in relation to Articles 45 and 68 of the Basic Law, came to a decision. We didn't ask for a decision to say that there shouldn't be universal suffrage in 07 and 08. The request didn't come from me. It didn't come from the SARG. We want to meet the requirements in Annex 1, that is the consensus of the three sides. The CD or the CS4A, being the head of the task force, are also required to abide by that. Universal suffrage as the ultimate aim is our common wish, and we want to do so as early as possible. Let's hope that we have got all the necessary infrastructure to do that. Universal suffrage. As I have said, we need the agreement on three parts. First of all, the people of Hong Kong and the legislature. Second, the CPG through the Standing Committee of the NPC. We need their decision and their support. And that has to be built on mutual trust. We must have confidence. Let's hope that we can understand China. Let's hope that the country can also understand our feelings. And let's hope that the universal suffrage will come earlier.
Dr. Kokaki, Madam President, I heard the conditions mentioned by the acting chief executive. Under these conditions, Hong Kong can move towards universal suffrage. But I'd like to hear more from the acting chief executive. For the three sides and the mutual trust of the three sides, and when, in your estimation, the consensus will be achieved? As a member of the Hong Kong public, this objective seems to be a very distant objective. So can you give us some ways and some timetable? This is the objective of the report number 5. We are listening to the public opinions. In report number 5, it will be outlining the method for electing the chief executive in 2007 and the legislature in 2008. We hope that the arrangement is going to be more democratic, more open, and more representative. And this is the objective that we'd like to achieve. And we need to have the endorsement of a 2/3 majority of the Legislative Council. And I hope that members would take part in the discussion positively and constructively. Dr. Kwok, I'm not sure whether you have contributed your views to the task force. I would treasure your views. But if you continue to say that we would insist on the universal suffrage in 0708, regardless, then there would be no basis for discussion, because obviously that would not be acceptable by the CPG. Why don't we just sit down and with sincerity and with a calm and collected attitude, we can put forward the specific ideas and work together, come up with a model within this framework which is acceptable to all. Ms. Chen Yunhan. Madam President, I am a serious person myself. The acting chief executive said that in relation to maximum working hours, there are different opinions between the employer and the employee. The government has to listen to both sides. If I may put this to the government, there are tens of thousands of people who are earning wages lower than the CSSA level, and there are many workers who don't know when they're going to finish work during a day. The government has got the reasonable wages in the contract out work. Now, if you say that it would take a consensus between the two sides, in Japan, Singapore, Japan, and in the mainland of China, they also have the reasonable wage level. You said that you would like to have a better relationship between the executive and the legislature. We have been exercising our forbearance, our patience, in the face of all these issues. Poverty is a problem. The government has decided to set up a commission to deal with poverty. So will the government be playing a role with a view to setting up or laying down a maximum working hours and minimum wage? But we need a tripartite cooperation. It is not just two sides. In any committee, there is an official participation and also leadership. If we just listen to one side of the opinion and ram through any legislation, this will not be conducive to harmony in the community. It's unsurprising that we may talk about something for a long time, but the people of Hong Kong are rational. I agree with you that many people are working exceedingly long hours and we have to do something about it, but it would take proper discussions before we can achieve a consensus. A consensus doesn't mean everybody would be in agreement. At least they would not be objecting to it. But in absence of any consensus, we simply cannot do it unless in exceptional circumstances, because in doing so, that would be a recipe for disharmony. So I hope that Ms. Chen, you know so well about the labor sector. You are so articulate. and you know a lot about the sentiments of the employer. I'm sure we will be able to find a solution, find a consensus. And Mr. Stephen Yip will also work hard to ensure that they will have a good discussion. Mr. Chen, I always get into an argument with Donald, but this time I am tongue-tied. I don't know how to respond. The more I argue, the more forceful I put forward my argument. Why can't you just listen to us? We are prepared to meet you halfway. But they refuse to budge, and the workers refuse to budge. I am prepared that minimum wage can be set for certain jobs. But what if both sides refuse to budge? Donald, why didn't you say acting chief executive? I'm sorry, it doesn't matter. I am carried away. I'm sorry. I hardly ever can have such a good vibe with the acting chief executive. I was just carried away. Acting CE. If you want to have a good enough atmosphere, I hope that we can maintain this favorable atmosphere and meet each other halfway. Why don't you, the executive, help the labor sector? And that would deal with some of the noises. I saw Mr. Leung. They all smile, but they're not putting a long face. I'm sure that we would be sensible in dealing with this issue. We work hard together, shall we? Acting Chief Executive, you agreed to stay on for 1.5 hours. I would just to carry on. Mr. Lee Wing-tat. Thank you, Madam President. Mr. Zhang, last week, some academics in support of core values issued a statement. They hope that on the 10th of July, they don't want to see a situation where an election would take place without any other candidates, without any platform, without any discussions with the public and so on. That was the case with Mr. Tong's election. The C election is a very important election. Do you think that there should be competition, there should be a platform, there should be a face-to-face discussion with the public to let the public know about how it's going to govern Hong Kong? In this C election, I'm sure that the candidates will listen to public opinion. They have to face the 800 members in the election committee. They have to also face the 6 million people in Hong Kong. They have to be accountable to the 6 odd million people in Hong Kong. I'm sure that there would be sensible and rational analysis. Whether there would be any competition, I know that Mr. Lee, you're going to be throwing your hat in the ring. There would be competition there. Mr. Lee Wing-tat. I learned a report that the most likely candidate would not file his name until June. In other words, the members of the public would not have much opportunity to put question to this most likely hot favorite candidate. So for such a candidate who is a hot favorite, don't you think that he should take part in election sooner rather than later? The public don't really have any opportunity to vote, but they can call the radio, they can write the submission, so that this most likely candidate would be able to collect more public opinion. According to this report, this candidate will not be nominated until very late. Do you think that this will be unfair to the members of the public? Acting CE? Why don't we make it frank? I think what you're saying is that, first of all, nobody can say for sure that he's going to win. Many members have different opinions. We fully respect this particular election system. I think you're talking about Donald Tsang. Let me say this. First of all, in this particular month, things are developing out of expectation. Mr. Tong resigned, and I became the acting chief executive. And I need to discharge my duty as acting chief executive to make sure that there will be a good CE election and the new CE would come about successfully on the 10th of July. There are many things that I didn't quite expect, including the interpretation of the Basic Law. The interpretation of the Basic Law is intended to ensure that we can achieve that. As far as I am concerned, as far as my personal wish is concerned, this must come after my work. This must be put at a secondary position. Well, I haven't quite completed the task. The chief executive election bill is still with the Legislative Council. As an acting chief executive, I have to make sure that I would be concentrating on the job and make the announcement that I'm going to be taking part in the election. I'm grateful to the people of Hong Kong and my colleagues across the boundary for their trust in me, but I haven't got time to think about all these issues for the time being. When the bill is enacted, I will be reflecting upon the situation and think about the next step. If I were to take part in the election, I'm not going to be facing 800 people. I'm going to be facing the people of Hong Kong, and also consider all the values and so on. The timetable for the CE election is not dictated by me. It is dictated by the law, the time for canvassing, the time for nomination, and so on. Everything is provided for. And there are many constraints there. At this point in time, I have my full mind on the job in my capacity as acting chief executive, so that the electoral arrangement can be endorsed by the Legislative Council before I think about anything further. Mr. Kwong Chi-Kin, you never put any question. Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I wasn't going to put any question myself, but acting chief executive had a heart-to-heart talk with Ms. Chen Yunhan, and that prompted me to put a question, because I don't want to see any doubts. People might doubt why the FTU all of a sudden becomes so friendly with the administration. Of course, I welcome good relationship between the executive and the legislature, but for you to call to praise Ms. Chen Yunhan for being articulate alone will not achieve a good relationship. I hope that the acting chief executive or the executive will look after the interests of the members of the public. I hope that my colleagues here in this chamber will also rise to the new challenge. The acting new chief executive seems to be having a very good political finesse than his predecessor, and Ms. Chen seems to be at a disadvantage. I'm coming to my question.
As a Legislative Council member, I think our basic duty is to monitor the government. Therefore, I'm going to ask a very difficult question. It is something related to the past. I'm a barrister, so I'm very concerned about constitutional development. So I just want to talk about something in the past. At that time, you weren't the acting CE, or rather, yes. When that happened, you were already the acting CE. So much has taken place, I've almost forgotten. You met Mr. Liao Hui. You stayed away from Hong Kong for as many as 4 days. Why didn't you gazette your absence from Hong Kong and asked the FS to act your post as the CE? I remember that when Mr. Sich Tung was the CE, he abided by this rule diligently, because on every Friday I read the Gazette, even though when Mr. Tung was only away during the daytime of a particular date, he would still have someone standing in his place. Your explanation was that you came back within the same day, but I don't think you should do this. So I hope you can give us an explanation. Well, those days were not working days. I'm talking about public holidays. Well, when it is a public holiday and when there is no need for somebody to discharge the statutory duties of a CE, then there's no need for such an arrangement. This has been so even in the past. I went there during the Easter holiday. At the time, it was the Easter holiday for a few days in a row, and that's why we didn't have the acting arrangement. I left Hong Kong. I went to Pearl River Delta region. I went to Jiangmen on a religious trip. It was known to everybody. I didn't hide anything as to whether there should be a gazettal notice. It depends on a number of things. First of all, whether there is a need for somebody to discharge the statutory duty. At the time, it was a public holiday. I went to a very nearby place. Should there be an emergency, I could come back immediately, and I was in touch with others. I did discuss the matter with others in the administration, and it was agreeable to them. And in fact, this was what Mr. Tung did in the past. Say, for example, when he was on a short trip to Shenzhen, he didn't have any gazettal notice unless it was otherwise. I'm surprised. The head of a government is on duty 24 hours a day. He or she doesn't enjoy any public holiday. I'm not sort of criticizing you severely now, but I would urge Mr. Zhang to reconsider this matter again, and please also consult the views of the Secretary for Justice. I don't want Mr. Zhang to continue to give an answer here. This is indeed very surprising and alarming. In due course, maybe Mr. Zhang can give us an explanation once again. He may tell us once again next time when he appears here, or he can also give us something in writing. It is something constitutional, and I think it is unacceptable saying that it is a very short trip and you stay in a place very nearby. If I may just add a word. Yes, I'm going to give you something in reply in writing, but I have to stress that the arrangement doesn't start with me. I will write to you, and there will be a formal document to be released to the public as well. Mr. Timothy Fogg. Acting CE for CEPA, as a result, by having the individual visitors from mainland, we become integrated with the Pearl River Delta region. I want to know whether there would be any measures in the short term to enhance our coordination and cooperation. As you know that the Disneyland theme park is soon to be opened. I want to know whether this would also have an impact on the transport and traffic between the two places, and would you consider building a magnetic train service network between Hong Kong and Guangzhou in relation to the port facilities as well as our liaison with the Guangdong province? We've been working on that for a number of years. In fact, you can see certain outcome on a daily basis. At our land boundary checkpoints, we're receiving 300,000 visitors. And then for goods vehicles, we have to clear 30,000 goods vehicles. And then for the waiting time at the control checkpoints, I'm sure you have seen them being smoothed out a lot. And then very soon we are going to have the Hong Kong-Shenzhen Western Corridor, and that will increase our traffic flow, so that will improve the traffic. The Disneyland theme park will be commissioned, and we are now considering special connection services by land and by sea. So one after another, they will be decided upon and announced. As to the railway development, in fact, it has always been discussed within the framework of Hong Kong-Guangdong cooperation, in particular, the regional express service. In other words, from Hong Kong through Shenzhen to Guangzhou and then further north to other cities. This is an express service. It has been in discussion for for a long period of time. It is one of the major infrastructural projects being discussed. And in fact, we have been talking about the alignment as well as the stations. As to the magnetic levitation trains, the cost, the technical feasibility, and how it positions itself in Hong Kong, as well as the economic return, would all have to be considered. And for this particular kind of railway service, you need to have special track work. And in fact, in Shanghai, it is on an elevated set of a network, not at grade and not underground. In Hong Kong, there's this environmental issue, that is, we have to consider the availability of land. For the regional express train, Hong Kong, Shenzhen, Guangzhou, we're talking about using the normal track work, but then the speed will be comparable to the magnetic levitation trains. Mr. Tommy Cheung has never asked questions, so Mr. Tommy Cheung, Acting CE. I didn't intend to ask questions because Dr. Chow isn't here, so I don't want to speak anything behind his back. If I want to talk about smoking ban in restaurants, the PIIF, etc. In fact, Ms. Chen Yunhan also talked about maximum working hours and minimum wage in the catering trade. So everything is being targeted at me. I understand that you will be leaving by 4:30, so there's still a bit of time for me to ask questions. So my question is, would you consider telling the Democrats that the sooner they pass the CEO bill, the earlier you can tell them that you would take part in the election, and then you will disclose your platform. So give them some incentives so that they can quickly endorse the bill? Whether I take part in the election or not, I still have to secure your consent so that we can pass the bill as early as possible. Mr. Lam is having meetings with you almost on a daily basis. It isn't a very lengthy bill, just a few clauses running to a page or so. In fact, not just limited to Democrats. I think other members would also want to see this being done as early as possible. And I'm confident that you would endorse the bill so that on the 10th of July, the CE election can take place smoothly. Mr. Tommy Cheung, Madam President, if I may ask the acting CE this question, can he tell us the following? That is, if there is an early endorsement of the bill, then any candidate can come forward to state his election platform. So would he be citing such an incentive so that we can embark on it as early as possible? We haven't yet started the cross-scrutiny. Mr. Cheung, I think he's already answered this part of your question. I don't think there's a need to repeat that again. Mr. Lang Yu-chong. Thank you, Madam President. I'm sure the acting CE would appreciate that. For the recent unemployment figures, we still have an unemployment rate of 6%, and we have still got 210,000 people without a job. It has been said that not much can be done. Yes, the economy has revived, and it is expected the market can solve the problem for us. But unfortunately, it seems that the unemployment rate has been staying at more or less the same level for quite a period of time. So acting CE, many workers are working long hours, and yet you are telling us that diligence is a virtue. However, Some workers are not able to get a job. They have run out of money and they have to steal food, they have to steal others' meal boxes just to survive. Would you agree with me that it is something unhealthy? It is in fact a social problem, and in fact it is a shame. Can we not follow the steps of other countries? That is, by trying to impose maximum working hours, we can solve the problem of unemployment. That's better than emphasizing diligence as a virtue and thus encouraging long working hours and so lower levels of employment, because in this way you can encourage and create more jobs. Mr. Leung, yes, it is true that our unemployment rate is still at a high level, 6.1%. When compared with the peak, of course, has seen a major improvement, but 6.1% is still unacceptable. We'll still try our best in this regard. As to the recent revival of our economy, I think things look good, and we have a workforce of 3.35 million. It is a historic peak, and I think the trend is good, and I'm sure the working force will expand in size. I think the people of Hong Kong should be in such a way that nobody should be reduced to a plight in which they are hungry and they don't have the means to seek medical consultation. And I don't think anybody should be denied a roof above their heads. I don't think we should allow this to happen. We have the CSSA, we have subsidized housing, we have other measures and means to prevent such hardship from happening. We'll do our best to help those who are in need, who are suffering. As to whether we can introduce maximum working hours so as to help with unemployment. Yes, some countries do introduce this, but then when you have maximum working hours, the market would respond. And then some employers, due to production cost problems, may not be able to increase the number of openings. Now, maximum working hours have been adopted in many countries. We'll be objective and we'll look at the justifications. As I have said, we would see if the employers, employees, and the government can agree on something which is acceptable to all. I think that's the best solution, and I don't think I have much to add. Mr. Leung, like you, I hope that all the workers in Hong Kong can enjoy a decent living. We all work hard, but I don't think it is right for us to work excessively long hours. That's not healthy. Mr. Leung. Consensus. Yes, we all want to reach a consensus. However, it seems that the government has not been working very positively and actively in trying to achieve the consensus. Last year, when we had the 1st of May, Labor Day, Mr. Tung made an announcement. That is, all the employees of contractors of the government would enjoy 8-hour working days. Now today we are interested in the maximum working hours. This is because May 1st, Labor Day is around the corner. We want to have 8 hours work, 8 hours rest, and 8 hours learning and leisure. How can we get that? I hope you establish the 1st of May as the Labor Day. We all hope that we can celebrate the Labor Day. Well, we have been going on for a while. What is our question? We want parenting skills and we want to upgrade our skills. We've been trying to advocate this and that, but do we have time to do that? So acting CE, all along you have been saying that we want to build a consensus, but then when you contracted out the services of the government, you didn't actually get the maximum hours from the contractors.
For contracting out work, we are the employer. We specify our conditions, but that's of course can be done. But if we impose similar conditions on the whole of Hong Kong, then we need greater consensus in the community before we can achieve that. May Day is a holiday. I'm sure it is a holiday. I agree with you that one should optimally work for 8 hours, but I've been working for 30-odd years. I've never been working only for 8 hours. In Asia, in Hong Kong, people do have the incentive to work, but we should avoid a situation where people are overworking. Thank you, Madam President. Thanks very much, Acting Chief Executive. You've answered questions from 20 members. For those who are still waiting to put questions, I must apologize for not letting you have the opportunity. Perhaps maybe we can keep our questions and answers shorter next time. The Acting Chief Executive will leave the chamber. Will members please stand?